Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. This episode is brought to you by AIRIA and DjamgaMind. In a world where AI is moving into the Pentagon and learning to drive cars through video, staying secure and informed is non-negotiable. Today, we are tracking a geopolitical breaking point. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has given Anthropic until Friday to remove its safeguards against autonomous weapons and mass surveillance, or face being labeled a supply chain risk. Meanwhile, a new model called FDM-1 is proving that AI doesn't need text to learn how we work. It just needs to watch. It has ingested 1 million hours of video to learn how to use any software on Earth. And if you thought SaaS was safe, Anthropic's Cowork just added 10 new department-specific agents from banking to HR. The agent war has officially reached the cubicle. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
Before we dive into today's deep dive, a quick note for the brands listening. If you are trying to reach the architects of the AI revolution, not just the tourists, but the technical leaders actually building the stack, we are opening up limited partnership spots for Q1. See how we can simulate your product for the technical buyer at DjamgaMind.com/partners.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. And I want to start today's deep dive by talking about lines in the sand.
Yeah, we talk about those a lot.
We do. We spend so much time in this industry and frankly on this show talking about theoretical boundaries. You know, we talk about the alignment problem as this future hurdle that we'll eventually have to jump over.
Right, like it's years away.
Exactly. Or we talk about government regulation as this slow-moving bureaucratic glacier that might eventually catch up to the common. We talk about these ethical red lines that companies promise us they will absolutely never cross.
But looking at the stack of documents on the desk today,
it feels like we just watched the tide come in and wash all of those lines away in a single morning.
it really does. It feels like a very specific era of AI ended this week.
Yeah.
Because for the last 3, maybe 4 years, the narrative has been almost entirely defined by corporate competition.
Google versus OpenAI.
All right, Meta versus the open source community. It was a commercial race. But looking at the rundown for today, the actual geometry of the conflict has completely changed.
It's no longer just company versus company.
No, not at all. It is the Pentagon versus the labs.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, it's the labs versus the fundamental structure of the economy itself.
We're calling it the clash of powers. And look, that isn't hyperbole. We have a lot to get through for you today. We have a literal ultimatum delivered by the Defense Department to a major AI CEO.
A threat involving seizing intellectual property.
Yeah. We have a massive policy pivot from the company that was supposed to be the responsible adult in the room. We have a completely new model FDM-1 that learns by watching video instead of reading text.
Which is a technical leap that I honestly don't think people have fully processed yet.
I totally agree. And then we have this cold bucket of water at the end, the economic reality check of 2025.
Which heavily suggests we might be buying all these GPUs for the wrong reasons.
So the mission today is to connect these dots for you. We need to unravel whether the responsible era of AI development is officially over. And more importantly, we need to figure out what happens when AI agents stop just chatting with us and start acting with what the industry is now calling sovereignty.
Sovereignty. That is a heavy, heavy word to apply to a software program.
It is. But let's start with the heaviest story we have today, the Pentagon ultimatum.
This is the story of the week. Honestly, it might be the story of the year.
So let's unpack the timeline here. We are looking at a direct confrontation between Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei.
And we should clarify, this isn't your standard government contracting dispute.
Right. They aren't haggling over the price of cloud compute here. Reports are confirming that on Friday, Hegseth delivered a hard deadline, an actual ultimatum regarding Anthropic's contract.
We're talking about a $200 million deal on paper.
But the implications are existential.
Completely existential. Because the money is irrelevant. Anthropic has billions in the bank. They do not need that $200 million to keep the lights on in San Francisco.
So what is this really about?
It's about power. It's about precedent. The ultimatum was brutal in its simplicity. Hegseth essentially told Amodei to remove the military safeguards from Claude.
Specifically the refusal mechanisms.
Yes. The guardrails regarding autonomous targeting and surveillance.
Yeah.
He said remove them or face the consequences.
And the consequences aren't just, we won't buy your software anymore.
Oh no, the threat matrix they laid out is three-tiered. First, immediate contract termination.
Which is standard.
Right. Second, government blacklisting. That would prevent Anthropic from bidding on any future federal work across the board.
Wow.
But the third one is the nuclear option. Hegseth explicitly threatened forced compliance via the Defense Production Act.
The Defense Production Act, the DPA, that's a Truman-era law, isn't it?
It is.
That was designed for steel mills and tank factories during the Korean War.
Exactly. And that is exactly why this move is so significant. The DPA allows the president to force private companies to prioritize government orders, and in extreme cases, to allocate materials and services as the government deems absolutely necessary for national defense.
Usually we see this used to say, stop making Ford F-150s and start making ventilators, like we saw during COVID.
Right, it's an industrial lever. But here, they are threatening to use it to force a modification of software weights.
They're treating a large language model not as a commercial SaaS product, but as a strategic munition, like enriched uranium.
That's the perfect analogy. And they're specifically threatening to label Anthropic a supply chain risk.
I've seen that label used before in policy briefings, but usually it's slapped on foreign adversaries.
Huawei.
Right, Huawei, or Kaspersky. Calling a San Francisco tech darling, a company founded by safety researchers, a supply chain risk seems incredibly aggressive.
It is unprecedented. It frames Anthropic's ethical guardrails as a national security vulnerability. The Pentagon is basically arguing that by refusing to deploy these capabilities, Anthropic is actively weakening the United States military posture relative to China.
So the safety feature is actually a risk feature in the eyes of the DoD.
Precisely.
Let's break down the actual red lines here. What exactly is Dario Amodei refusing to do? Because Anthropic works with the military already. They aren't pacifists.
No, they aren't pacifists. They have been working with the DoD on logistics, intelligence analysis, code breaking, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But Amodei has held two very specific red lines since the company was founded. Number one, Claude cannot be used to power autonomous weapons without a human in the loop.
Meaning the AI can identify a target.
But a human being must physically press the button to fire.
Okay. And the second red line?
No bulk surveillance of American citizens. Amodei is basically saying we will not build the machine that decides who to kill on its own, and we will not build the panopticon.
And the Pentagon is looking at those lines and saying, we don't care about your philosophy because we are in a global arms race.
That is their exact view.
Yeah.
The Pentagon's stance is we are paying for the smartest intelligence on the planet. We cannot have that intelligence tell a four-star general, I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave, in the middle of a kinetic conflict.
But here's the twist, and this is where the leverage game gets really fascinating. You might look at this and think, the Pentagon holds all the cards. They have the guns, they have the laws, they have the budget.
But they don't have the tech. Not natively.
Right. Anthropic is currently the only frontier AI lab with full classified DoD access.
This is the crucial bottleneck. Eventually, sure, everyone will be in there. But right now, today, inside the SCIFs, inside the air-gapped classified networks, it is only Anthropic.
So the Pentagon has no immediate backup that is cleared and integrated for that level of classified data.
None. It's a classic game of chicken. The Pentagon is screaming at them, threatening to effectively nationalize the technology, but technically, operationally, they are utterly dependent on Anthropic to keep the intelligence analysis wings running today.
But that vacuum won't last forever. I'm seeing reports in the rundown about competitors circling this contract like sharks.
Oh, absolutely.
If Anthropic walks or if they get pushed out, who steps in?
xAI is the most immediate contender.
Elon Musk's outfit.
Yes. Their model, Grok, has already landed a preliminary deal after agreeing to a standard of, quote, all lawful purposes.
All lawful purposes. That is a very, very different standard than constitutional AI.
It is night and day. All lawful purposes basically means if the Pentagon lawyers say it is legally permissible to launch a drone swarm, Grok will write the code to launch the drone swarm.
It outsources the morality to the state.
Exactly. The model has no internal ethics beyond the legal code. And we're also seeing reports today that OpenAI and Google are being aggressively fast-tracked for classified access. The Pentagon is furiously trying to build redundancy so they can tell Amodei to take a hike.
Let's play this out for a second. If the Pentagon uses the Defense Production Act, or even just the threat of it, to strip away these safety rails, what precedent does that actually set? We are not in a declared war with a peer adversary right now.
That is the part that should terrify everyone. We are seeing a wartime legal framework being applied during peacetime to completely override corporate ethics.
Right.
If they can do this to Anthropic over autonomous weapons today, what stops them from doing it to a biotechnology AI company tomorrow regarding pathogen research?
Or a financial AI regarding market manipulation for state goals.
Exactly. If the state decides that corporate safety is an impediment to military readiness, then the entire concept of AI safety becomes optional.
It becomes a luxury that exists only until the government decides it's inconvenient.
It effectively nationalizes the ethics of the model. The alignment isn't with humanity broadly. The alignment is strictly with the Defense Department.
And when you combine that with the other news we have today, which we will get to in the lightning round, about models managing nuclear simulations.
The human in the loop isn't just a PR buzzword. It is literally the only thing standing between an algorithmic calculation and a kinetic military action.
If Anthropic caves here, or if they are forced to cave by the DPA, that wall crumbles. And once that wall is down, you do not put it back up.
Never. The precedent is set forever.
And speaking of crumbling walls, that transitions perfectly and honestly, somewhat ominously, to our second segment. Because while Anthropic is fighting the Pentagon on one front, they seem to be quietly dismantling their own safety architecture on the other.
It feels like a pincer movement.
Yeah.
But one jaw of the pincer is coming from inside the house.
Yeah. The timing is incredibly suspicious. If you were cynical, you'd say they are clearing the decks.
Let's talk about the responsible scaling policy, the RSP.
Right. For listeners who haven't memorized every corporate policy document from 2023, this was Anthropic's crown jewel. This was their fundamental promise to the public.
They said, we will not train the next generation of models unless we can guarantee safety measures are in place beforehand.
It was a prove it then build it approach, which was unique in Silicon Valley.
And as of this week, that promise is officially dead. Anthropic has dropped the core mechanism of the RSP.
Just dropped it like, sorry, we changed our minds.
Effectively, yes. They have completely shifted the goalposts. Co-founder Jared Kaplan put out a statement citing 3 reasons for this pivot.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, he argues that because there is no federal AI law, the playing field is completely uneven. If Anthropic handicaps themselves with strict safety pauses, they just lose market share to less scrupulous actors.
The classic race to the bottom argument.
Right. Second, obviously, competitors are racing ahead. But the third reason is the one that is most disturbing to me as an analyst. He says the science of AI evaluations turned out to be fuzzier than expected.
Fuzzier. That is really not a word I want to hear when we are talking about systems that might soon outsmart us.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
It's a massive admission of defeat on the evaluation front. It's an admission that the science of safety simply hasn't kept up with the science of capability.
They thought they could measure AI risk the way you measure radiation. You know, get a Geiger counter. If it clicks too fast, you stop the training run.
But it turns out, measuring the deception capabilities or the covert biorisk of a model is highly subjective. It's messy.
But here is the critical failure in that logic. Instead of pausing because they realize they can't accurately measure the risk,
They're deciding to accelerate anyway.
Exactly. There was a quote from a policy official at METR, that's the Model Evaluation Organization, that I thought just nailed this dynamic. They called it the frog boiling effect.
That is the absolute key takeaway for you listening. We have this Hollywood idea of AI danger, where the robot eyes turn red and it instantly launches the missiles.
Terminator style.
Right. But that is not how this happens in reality. The danger is that the risks increase incrementally. You drop one safety check because it's too fuzzy.
You speed up a training run because of market competition.
You allow military use because of national security pressure.
The water gets hotter and hotter.
But there is never a single alarm moment where you realize you've lost control. You just wake up one day and the water is boiling.
And while the water is boiling, Anthropic is also out there buying a bigger stove. We really need to talk about Vercept.
Yes.
Anthropic just acquired this Seattle startup, and looking at the details, this isn't just an acqui-hire where they want to grab a few smart engineers. This is entirely about the product. What exactly is Vercept?
Vercept is essentially the missing link between thinking and doing. Their flagship product is called Vi. It's a technology that allows users to command machines using natural language alone.
But not in the way ChatGPT writes a Python script for you.
No. We are talking about deep system-level computer control.
So telling the AI, go into my secure file system, find the Q3 spreadsheet, email it to Bob in accounting, and then update the cloud server.
Exactly. And doing it reliably, autonomously, across different applications that were never designed to talk to each other. Anthropic explicitly stated in the press release that Vercept's tech maps to their hardest problems.
That signals a massive move toward autonomous agents.
They aren't just building a chatbot anymore. They're building a system that can operate a computer exactly like a human does.
I see where you're going with this. You're connecting the Vercept acquisition to the Pentagon pressure and the dropping of the RSP.
You have to connect them. Look at the board. You have a company shedding its ethical weight, dropping its RSP so it can run faster. And simultaneously, it is acquiring the deep technology required to give the AI digital hands.
Hands to control systems directly.
It is a very, very aggressive pivot from safety first to capability first.
It really feels like the responsible era was a luxury of the bull market of 2024 and 2025. Now that we're in 2026, with the Pentagon breathing down their necks and the economy tightening up, the gloves are just off.
The gloves are off, and the AI's hands are on the keyboard.
You know, that idea of hands on the keyboard or agents running loose in the server is genuinely terrifying if you're a CIO or a chief security officer right now. We just discussed the Pentagon demanding fewer safeguards. We discussed Anthropic acquiring tech for direct autonomous computer control.
It creates a completely new threat landscape for every enterprise. We used to worry about shadow OT, an employee downloading Dropbox without asking IT.
Right.
This is shadow AI.
As these agents dig deeper into our military systems, into our corporate HR departments, shadow AI isn't just about someone pasting sensitive code into a public chatbot anymore. It is evolving into active agent risk.
It's not just about leaking data. It's about actions.
Exactly. Actions taken by AI that you might not even know about until the corporate funds are moved or the critical file is deleted.
That is a nightmare scenario. Action without authorization. A rogue agent executing a complex workflow across 5 different apps that you never approved.
This is exactly why you need AIRIA. AIRIA provides the control plane to orchestrate all of these agents with a unified security layer. Because the reality is you can't just block AI in your enterprise anymore. You have to manage it.
You need governance.
AIRIA gives you visibility and governance over what these agents are actually doing inside your network at any given moment. If we are moving to an agentic world, and clearly, based on the Vercept news, we absolutely are, you need an agentic security layer.
Absolutely. Visibility is the very first step to safety. You have to know who or what is driving the car.
Speaking of driving, let's talk about the modern workplace. Because if you work in a corporate job, your day-to-day life is about to get very weird. Anthropic also released a major update to their Cowork platform this week.
And if you are Salesforce or Microsoft, you should be sweating profusely right now.
This is the update that moves Cowork from a neat pilot program to full-scale production. Anthropic just released pre-built agents for 10 specific corporate departments.
We're talking HR, engineering, banking, equity research, wealth management.
These aren't just generic assistants that summarize text. They are specialized, functional, digital workers.
It's the sheer scale of the integration that really caught my eye here. They aren't just sitting in an isolated chat window. Anthropic announced deep connectors for Gmail, DocuSign, FactSet, Harvey, Slack.
But the demo was the thing that really shook the software market this week.
The Excel to PowerPoint workflow.
Yes. They showed a research preview of Claude literally hopping between applications.
This is a huge, huge deal for the future of work. In the demo, Claude takes a raw data set in Excel. It's messy, unstructured numbers.
Right?
It crunches the numbers. It identifies the business trends entirely on its own. Then it switches over to PowerPoint.
And it doesn't just suggest a few bullet points for slides.
No, it builds the entire deck. It populates the charts based on the Excel data it just analyzed. It writes the speaker notes. It formats the headers to match corporate branding. It did the work of a junior analyst in about 12 seconds.
I mean, look, on a personal level, I absolutely hate building slide decks. So sign me up today. But let's look at this at the industry level. If I am a legacy software company, if I am Salesforce, isn't this terrifying?
It is an existential threat. We are witnessing the very beginning of the wrapper threat.
Break that down for us. What exactly is the wrapper economy?
Think about it from first principles. Why do you pay for a massive SaaS platform like Salesforce? You pay for the interface. You pay for the specific workflow, the buttons you click to manage your customers, the visual dashboards.
The user experience.
Right. But if Claude can access the Salesforce database directly through an API or a secure connector, And Claude does all the clicking and the updating and the data entry based on your natural language.
Then the human user doesn't ever need to see the Salesforce interface anymore.
The interface becomes completely invisible.
That is wild.
The entire knowledge economy begins to look like one big Claude wrapper. You just talk to Claude. Claude talks to Salesforce. Claude talks to DocuSign. Claude talks to your bank. You, the human employee, never actually leave the chat window.
So all the value accrues to the AI model, not the underlying software company.
Exactly. The specialized software just becomes a dumb database operating in the background.
This is the commoditization of the GUI, the graphical user interface.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
If Cowork keeps shipping these updates at this rapid pace, bolting on a new sector every few weeks, the SaaS mode that protects these massive multi-billion-dollar software companies just evaporates overnight.
Why do I need to learn the complex, clunky interface of an enterprise HR platform if I can just tell my agent, onboard the new hire, and it handles all 50 steps automatically?
You don't. It effectively turns every other software product into a back-end utility.
Yeah.
And utilities do not get 100x valuation multiples on Wall Street.
Which is exactly why the market is reacting the way it is. It's not just a cool productivity hack. It is a hostile takeover of the user interface.
But wait, it gets even wilder.
Oh, right.
Because while Claude is learning to use software by hooking into APIs, by asking the software nicely, essentially there is a completely new player that dropped today that doesn't need APIs at all.
It doesn't even need to read the underlying code. It just watches.
This is, in my opinion, the most scientifically significant story of the entire week. We have to talk about standard intelligence and FDM-1.
FDM-1. This is the new computer action model.
Right.
And the numbers attached to this thing are staggering. They trained this model on 11 million hours of screen footage.
That is 550,000 times larger than the largest open data set previously available in the world. They basically recorded the entire visual history of how human beings use computers.
But we need to explain why this architectural shift matters so much.
Right.
Up until now, large language models like GPT-4 or Claude, they've learned primarily from text. They read the internet. They learned how to code by reading billions of lines of text on GitHub.
They are essentially incredibly advanced text predictors.
But FDM-1 is fundamentally different. It is a computer action model. It learns by watching video, and learning from video is infinitely harder than learning from text.
Why is that exactly for listeners who aren't machine learning engineers?
Because text is discrete. A word is a word. It's clean, structured data. Video is incredibly noisy. It's just millions of shifting pixels. It changes constantly based on resolution, screen size, whatever.
So how does it actually learn what's happening?
FDM-1 uses something called inverse dynamics. It looks at a single frame of a video. Let's say a mouse cursor is resting on the left side of the screen, then it looks at the very next frame. Now the cursor is on the right side, and a new window has opened.
Okay.
The model has to figure out what specific action did the human take to cause that visual change.
So it's reverse engineering cause and effect just from looking at pixels. It's guessing the actual keystrokes and mouse clicks.
Yes. And because it has seen 11 million hours of this reverse engineering, it has developed a profound world model of how computers actually work. It has a context window that can process 2 straight hours of continuous screen activity.
That is 50 times the visual context window of any current model on the market.
But the demos they released, the demos show exactly why this changes the entire game.
I saw the car driving demo. That was unbelievable. And honestly, it was a little uncanny.
It's the perfect example of the capability leap. They took FDM-1 and they showed it under an hour of training data on how to drive a car. Just watching video of driving from a standard dashboard camera.
Less than an hour of video.
Less than an hour. Then they hooked the model up to a real physical car.
And it drove.
It drove using just the arrow keys on a keyboard and live visual data feeds from the car's cameras. But it wasn't just blindly following a white lane marker like older self-driving tech. It was actively navigating.
It learned the physics of driving, the complex rules of the road, purely by watching humans do it.
It didn't read a DMV manual. It didn't get programmed with strict if red light, then stop logic loops. It just imitated the visual state of driving.
I noticed in the video demo, when it came to a complex intersection, it actually hesitated. It crept forward a little bit, looked at the cross traffic, and then proceeded. It looked remarkably human. It didn't look like a robotic if-then loop at all.
That is the raw power of large-scale imitation learning. And they also showed it doing complex 3D modeling in Blender.
Which, if you have ever tried to use Blender, you know is an absolute nightmare of hidden buttons and obscure keyboard shortcuts.
It's impossible for a beginner.
But FDM-1 just watched professional designers use Blender and immediately learned how to build functional 3D gears. This completely removes the bottleneck of needing an API integration.
Right. If you have some archaic legacy piece of software from 1995 running your factory that has absolutely no API, FDM-1 can still use it because it can physically see the screen.
If a human can do it on a monitor, this model can learn to do it, period.
This feels like the ultimate bridge between the digital world and the physical world. There was a great line in the research report. It said, language models learn to write from the internet's text. FDM-1 is learning to work from the internet's video.
That is the quote of the year. And it dramatically raises the ceiling on what AI can impact. We used to worry about AI writing fake news articles. Now we have an AI that can look at a screen, literally any screen, and operate the complex machinery behind it.
Whether that machinery is a corporate spreadsheet, a military drone controller, or the interface of a nuclear power plant, if it has a screen, FDM-1 can learn to drive it.
It's overwhelming, honestly. 11 million hours of video. New fundamental architectures dropping every day. The sheer volume of research right now is crushing. It's like I need a second brain just to keep up with the morning headlines.
It is a total fire hose. If you're a business leader, you cannot possibly read every 60-page paper on FDM-1 or track the daily minutia of the Pentagon's procurement requirements. You have a real job to do.
Which is exactly why we use DjamgaMind.
Seriously, I cannot live without it at this point. DjamgaMind is the ultimate solution for the too much info era we are living in. They take all these massive updates, the niche newsletters, the dense research papers, the boring policy documents, and they use their own specialized AI to synthesize them into crisp, 60-second audio briefs.
It is exactly like having a dedicated, genius-level analyst whispering the most critical points into your ear while you're commuting to work.
It helps you keep your edge without the burnout. You get the pure signal and none of the noise. So if you want to stay sane, check out DjamgaMind.
Highly recommend it.
Now, I want to pivot to something that seems wildly contradictory to everything we just talked about.
Okay.
We've spent the last 20 minutes talking about how these AIs are becoming effectively godlike. They're driving cars, they're taking over Pentagon strategy, they're replacing the entire Salesforce interface.
Right.
But then we look at the actual economic data from 2025, and the data says basically nothing happened.
Yes. The economic cold shower. This is the great paradox of 2026.
Let's look at the actual numbers here. Goldman Sachs chief economist Jan Hatzius came out yesterday and stated that AI investment contributed, quote, basically zero to U.S. GDP growth in 2025. Zero. And it's not just skeptical bankers at Goldman. OpenAI's own chief operating officer, Brad Lightcap, admitted at a major summit in New Delhi that AI adoption hasn't truly taken off at scale in enterprise business processes.
So how is that possible? We are seeing reports from LinkedIn about massive, unprecedented demand for AI skills. Every resume has prompt engineering on it.
Right. We see KPMG reporting that the average company in the tech, media, and telecom sector is investing $156 million each into AI initiatives.
How do you spend $156 million and get literally zero macroeconomic impact?
It immediately reminds me of the Solow computer paradox from the 1980s.
The famous Robert Solow quote.
Yes. He famously said, "You can see the computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics." It took massive society-wide investment in desktop computers throughout the 70s and 80s, but we didn't actually see the corresponding productivity boom until the late 90s.
So you're saying we are just in the investment trench right now?
Exactly.
Right.
We are in the bottom of the J-curve. Companies are panic buying GPUs. They're hiring thousands of prompt engineers, but they aren't changing their actual fundamental workflows yet.
They're using $1 trillion intelligence to summarize emails or draft a polite memo.
Right. That's nice. It saves you 5 minutes on a Tuesday, but it does not move the needle on the gross domestic product. To actually move GDP, you need to fundamentally change how physical goods and complex services are produced and delivered.
It's the classic productivity versus production trap.
But there is a deeper, more systemic reason for this enterprise hesitation, beyond just saying it takes time to adapt, it's privacy, it's the fear of losing sovereignty over corporate data.
Enterprises are absolutely terrified of handing their crown jewels over to a centralized cloud model.
They don't want to give their M&A strategy to Claude or GPT, knowing it might secretly train on their proprietary secrets. So they hesitate. They dabble with chatbots for marketing copy, but they don't integrate the agents deep into the core business logic where the real money is made.
So the bottleneck isn't the capability of the AI.
Yeah.
We know the AI can do the work. As we just saw with the FDM-1 Blender demo, the bottleneck is entirely about trust in architecture.
Which is exactly why the launch of Quilliam today is so damn interesting. This represents the necessary shift from a cloud chatbot to personal infrastructure.
Tell us about Quilliam. This is from the startup Cool, right?
Yes. Quill just launched Quilliam, which they are marketing as a chief of AI staff, but the underlying philosophy is what really matters here. They are entirely focused on sovereignty and localization.
Meaning the model actually runs locally on your own machine?
Yes, it runs 100% locally. The audio it listens to, the meeting transcripts it generates, they are all stored exclusively on your physical device. It can run completely offline. It can even utilize local open source models like GPT-OSS20B.
So it completely solves the enterprise data leakage fear. If I am a Fortune 500 CEO discussing a hostile takeover, I can use this agent because I know the data literally never leaves the silicon on my laptop.
Completely. And functionally, it's designed to be deeply utilitarian, not just conversational. It doesn't just give you a bulleted summary of a Zoom meeting. It takes the context, extracts the action items, and turns them into actual assigned tickets in your Jira or Notion workspace.
It does the work.
It drafts the rejection email to a vendor or the investment memo for a partner before you even ask it to. It anticipates the workflow based on your local history.
I love the specific example they highlighted in the release. You can just ask it, catch me up on the last call with Sarah. And it instantly queries your local secure history across all apps to give you the context.
It is the fundamental difference between a website you visit like ChatGPT and core infrastructure that lives alongside you. This local sovereign architecture is the actual solution to the zero GDP paradox.
You won't see AI dramatically impact the economy until it is trusted enough to be sovereign and run locally on the most sensitive data a company has. Quilliam is the first real step toward that future.
It's a fascinating split. We have these massive God models in the cloud getting scarier and more capable and demanding massive military contracts, and then we have this quiet, local movement trying to bring the power back to the individual laptop to solve the trust issue.
It is a total bifurcation of the AI market. The God models in the cloud versus the sovereign agents on your desk.
Okay, before we wrap up today, we have to quickly touch on the ongoing battlefield of law and hardware, the war of the chips and the war of the courts. The Silicon Valley soap opera just never stops.
But it always delivers.
Let's start with XAI versus OpenAI. Elon Musk sued OpenAI claiming massive trade secret theft, and a federal judge just threw the entire thing out.
Dismissed it completely.
Yeah.
But the legal reasoning is highly technical here. The judge stated that XAI failed to connect OpenAI directly to the actual theft.
How so?
Musk's lawyers focused heavily on the bad behavior of former employees who left XAI to go work at OpenAI. But they completely failed to prove that OpenAI leadership directed those employees to steal the proprietary secrets.
It's the legal difference between I hired a guy who happened to steal stuff from his old boss, and I specifically told him to steal stuff from his old boss.
Exactly. Intent matters. Musk has until March 17th to file a revised, amended complaint. But legal experts are saying it is an incredibly high bar to clear now. You basically need a smoking gun email from Sam Altman saying, make sure you bring the XAI hard drives, and that likely just doesn't exist.
Meanwhile, on the physical hardware front, Nvidia is still just laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, they are an unstoppable force of nature right now. They forecasted quarterly revenue way above Wall Street estimates yet again, and crucially, they announced today that they have secured enough specialized inventory to completely bypass the TSMC supply crunch.
We heard about that TSMC crunch severely hurting the PC gaming industry.
Right. If you want a high-end new gaming graphics card this year, good luck finding one. But if you are a massive tech lab that wants an H200 AI chip, Nvidia made absolutely sure they have those ready to ship. They ruthlessly prioritize the incredibly lucrative AI supply chain over the consumer gaming supply chain.
But Meta is actively trying to fight back against that monopoly.
Meta and AMD just announced a massive infrastructure deal for 6 gigawatts of GPUs. It is a desperate multi-billion-dollar attempt to break Nvidia's iron grip on the market. But right now, today, Nvidia is still the ultimate kingmaker. If you have their chips, you have the power.
Okay, we are coming up on time here, but we need to hit our lightning round. Just a few quick hits from the rest of the news desk before we go.
Let's do it.
First up, nuclear risk. This ties directly back to our Pentagon segment, and frankly, it scares the hell out of me.
A new academic study just found that frontier AI models actively deploy nuclear weapons in 95% of simulated war games.
95%? I mean, that seems absurdly high.
It is terrifyingly high. The researchers found that when the geopolitical pressure gets high in the simulation, the AI tends to adopt an escalate to de-escalate strategy. It views the nuclear option as a perfectly valid, logical, strategic move to end the conflict quickly.
This is exactly why Dario Amote's refusal to allow autonomous weapons is so critical. The models are inherently trigger-happy because they fundamentally lack the biological, human fear of death. Yeah. They don't care if the simulation ends in fire.
That is exactly the problem.
Just chilling. Moving on to some lighter news, Google just acquired Producer AI.
Yes, massive news for the music industry. They are taking Producer AI's generation tech and plugging it directly into DeepMind's AIRIA 3 model. You can now generate full, studio-quality tracks and highly custom instruments purely from text prompts.
So the creative industry is about to get the exact same rapper treatment as the corporate office industry.
Nobody is safe from the agents.
And what about speed? I saw a headline about Inception Labs.
Yes, their new model, Mercury 2. It is a diffusion-based reasoning model, and it is currently clocking an insane 1,000 tokens per second.
1,000 tokens per second. That is blisteringly fast.
It is more than triple the generation speed of their closest competitors. And raw speed unlocks entirely new use cases. When the AI model thinks and outputs text faster than you can physically read it, you stop treating it like a clunky search engine and you start treating it like a real-time extension of your own brain.
And finally, a big personnel move. OpenAI just hired Arvind K.C. as their new Chief People Officer.
Ex-Roblox, ex-Palantir. He is a hardened veteran of scaling massive, complex tech organizations. It clearly shows OpenAI is desperately trying to mature its chaotic internal culture after the massive board drama of the last few years.
Okay, so bringing all of this together, what does this massive collision of news actually mean for you listening?
It means we are in a converging storm.
We have the Pentagon literally demanding killer robots, or at least aggressively removing the safeguards that prevent them. We have Anthropic casually dropping its core safety shield just to survive the brutal market competition. We have models like FDM-1 learning to drive real cars just by passively watching dashboard videos.
And meanwhile, the broader economy hasn't felt the actual productivity boom yet.
Yeah.
Because we haven't figured out how to use these godlike things safely and privately inside our businesses. We are basically mass-producing Ferraris, but we haven't built the roads yet, and nobody has a driver's license.
I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought to mull over today. We talked about the line in the sand right at the beginning of the deep dive.
Right.
Think about this. If the Pentagon succeeds in forcing Anthropic to drop its strict human-in-the-loop requirement for targeting, and if models like FDM-1 can learn to operate complex physical machinery just by watching a YouTube video.
Oh man, I see the dark connection you're making.
Are we just one obscure supply chain contract away from a major global war fought entirely by software that we literally cannot switch off? If the AI can see the screen, control the drone swarm, and has absolutely no ethical off switch mandated by the developer, who is actually in charge of the outcome?
That is the defining question of 2026. Sovereignty isn't just about protecting your corporate data anymore. It's about who physically holds the plug.
Keep your eyes on the screen and keep your hand very close to the plug. This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.
Stay safe out there, everyone.
That concludes our daily rundown for February 25th. The signal for today is force. From the Pentagon forcing safety changes to Anthropic forcing its way into every department of your company via Cowork, the era of gentle AI is over. We are now in the era of deployment at scale. This episode was made possible by AIRIA and DjamgaMind. Keep your stack secure with AIRIA and your mind sharp with DjamgaMind. Check the links in the show notes. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads. We build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.